Well, hello everybody, and welcome to my new show, which is called There Is No Spoon. And today we have a wonderful woman, Brandy Anderson. She's a spiritual director, Jungian coach, and author of Through the Veil, A Glimpse into the Afterlife. She's the co-host of Transcending the Rabbit Hole and Spectral Symposium podcasts. Drawing on a depth of psychology, esoteric wisdom, and her own mystical experiences, she helps people navigate deconstruction, shadow work, and deep soul integration. Brandy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be with you today.
Same, same. Yeah, me and Brandy interviewed me on her podcast Spectral Symposium a while back, and I promised to have her onto my show. So that was a lot of fun. Is there anything
Yeah, we
you'd
have
like to add to that?
yeah, no, I think you hit all of the highlights that pretty much sums me up. Yeah, podcasting and writing, that's kind of my thing and Jungian coaching. Yeah, we had an amazing conversation on Spectral Symposium. Your listeners should go check that out. Yeah, I really enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, and of course I'll put links. I'll put links to your website and your different things as well in the down in the notes as well. So, I was thinking maybe you could share a little bit about your spiritual awakening to start with, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, back in 2014, I had a spiritual awakening that sort of sent me on a journey of just seeking out ultimate truth. I had been experiencing a season of depression, and I was coming from a Christian family, though I really wasn't plugged in any, kind of way. I would have identified as a Christian because of the faith of my family, but I was not practicing
Mm,
uh, any religion. I was not following Christ. And yeah, this depression just sort of descended upon me and it just lingered for months. And initially I thought, well, it'll lift because, everything is cyclical, seasonal. And I was never given to like clinical depression or anything
mm,
like that. So I figured, in time this will relent. It's just a season, but it didn't relent. It persisted. And so finally it became so heavy that I woke up one morning and it was just so intense that I cried out to God. And
mm,
it wasn't a pious prayer by any stretch of the imagination. It was more provocative, if
mm,
anything. It was just me unleashing my frustrations into the atmosphere, hoping that something just might shift. And in the midst of all of that turmoil and angst and just my frustrations, as I'm just, venting into the
mm,
atmosphere, I heard a voice as loud and clear as anything I've ever heard in my life. And it just said, "Be still." And it
mm,
silenced me to my core. Instant peace washed over me in that moment. And I remember thinking in my mind, wow, this is God.
mm,
But I didn't have a context for it. I didn't understand theologically or philosophically what that might mean for me. So, and it was an inner voice to be sure. I didn't hear an external, but it was so loud it just stilled me.
mm,
Um, from there, I began plugging into churches because, like I said, I was coming from a Christian family, so I
mm,
just the only thing I knew to do, and that was to plug into the church. And I started to study and just really, I was 100% all in studying and reading the Bible and attending services and just trying to um, get a framework that I could hang this experience on, a foundation so that I could understand better what had happened to me. And ultimately, I came to the end of all of that seeking and studying and the spiritual seeking, just exhausted. And
mm,
I found mainstream Christian answers to life's most important questions less than satisfying. So I shifted out of that mainstream evangelical space and landed in a more contemplative space, still very much
mm,
a Christ follower, but no longer evangelical.
mm,
And it was in that contemplative space that I found a lot of rest and refreshment, and
mm,
was able to just rest in the mystery a little more, have more peace. it was that experiential piece that I had infused into me at my awakening. I was finally able to actually experience that, where I had
Mm,
not been able to, cultivate that kind of peace through mainstream Christian theology.
mm,
And yeah, so more of a mystical place. And that's kind of how I have shifted to where I am now. I mean, currently I'm in a more mystical, contemplative space. I probably wouldn't identify as a Christian any longer just because I
mm,
find so unhelpful. But definitely a Christ follower still.
mm. Yeah. Also, like maybe I would identify maybe with more the Gnostics.
Yeah, it's interesting that you asked that. I was just having this conversation with my friend Annalise just yesterday, and I was saying, well, I'm not Gnostic because I don't believe that physicality is bad. I think that's what I
Mm,
said.
mm,
But as we continued in the conversation, really a lot of my views overlap with Gnosticism. So I think there's a lot of truth and a lot of helpful ways of framing things in Gnosticism. So a lot of my beliefs would correlate with Gnosticism, but not entirely, because, like I said, I don't believe that physicality is evil.
mm,
And that is one of the components, I think, of Gnostic thought.
mm, mm.
I probably don't fit into any category entirely, to
That's
be
not a bad
perfect.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said a while ago that I didn't want to I didn't want to work with labels anymore. I was fed up of labels. So
Um,
I think that's a good thing that you can just go wherever your heart takes you. One of the things in the Gnostic te well in the for example the Gospel of Mary is and Thomas is the kingdom is within you or the realm is within you. So we need to go within. So I think that's these external things and theologies. Then we soon find out that they may have been helpful for a time, but they fall away when you go deeper.
yeah, absolutely. That really resonates. I think, I don't want to box myself into any particular belief system because
Mm,
truth is the most important thing to me.
yeah.
And you begin to identify with particular theologies or particular doctrines,
Mm,
particular religions or systems, then you are inhibited from being able to really follow truth at all costs. And so that is kind of like I'm a truth seeker. So even if it
yeah.
blows my life apart, I want the truth.
Yeah, and I've seen that like with your podcasts with Alison, and I've seen that also with the Transcending the Rabbit Hole. And you're doing your own podcast as well now, and you're writing. You're a busy woman. You're constantly sending out content, so that's awesome. Maybe I'd like you to chat a little bit about your book because that's really, really fascinating story about you had a relative, a granny that passed away and then forced her way back into your life in a certain way. So I'd really love, and my guests would really love to hear more about that.
Yeah, that was a completely unexpected turn of events. I find that my entire journey has been just life has been pulling the rug out from under me at every turn. First, the spiritual awakening, and then I kind of, came to the end of all of that, disenchanted, and I shifted into a more contemplative space, which was kind of another tower moment because, when you shift your beliefs, you lose people, you lose
Mm,
relationships, and a sense of security in that. And then so fast forward a little, I'm still in that contemplative space, and my grandmother comes to the end of her physical life, and after she crossed, yeah, she found a way to push her way back into time and space and communicate with us, have
mm,
sustained communication with us, and yeah, that was another really big turning point for me. Initially, I don't live in the house where the activity took place, where my grandmother crossed, but my family does. And
mm,
the initial experience was that the television came on by itself,
mm,
navigated to the search. It's a smart TV. It's a Roku television, and so it navigated to the search. Like the little search bar came up, and then the word hello appeared in the search. And my
mm.
family, who live in that house, ran shrieking in terror out
Wow.
of the house. They were completely horrified. Uh, and they called me. and they're talking over one another. They're crying. They're afraid. They're standing outside, with me on speaker, just telling me all of the activity, everything that's happening.
Mm,
And I was convinced that it had to be something in the physical realm, like a hacker. I thought, well, there's
mm,
someone in the television, somebody's playing a prank.
mm,
I assured them, just go back inside, check the parameters, check the cameras, make sure the TV's not hooked to Alexa or something like
mm,
that. There's a logical, reasonable explanation for this, what's happening.
mm,
So they took my advice and they tried to find a reasonable explanation, and they couldn't ultimately find one. But the activity persisted. Like a few days would go by and this would happen again. Now the second attempt, instead of hello, the word love appeared in the search.
mm.
My grandmother was trying to be like, hey, I'm coming in love. But they were having no part of it. They ran shrieking again
Mm,
out of the house. My aunt was so rattled by the activity that she moved out, and she went to live
mm,
with her son for a while because it was really unnerving her. And finally, after it persisted, and I thought to myself, I'm just going to go and check this out for myself. It's not stopping, and it's kind of affecting their quality of life. Let's get to the bottom of it.
mm,
And I went thinking it has to be a hacker. There's a reasonable explanation. And when I got there, the television popped on by itself, navigated to the search. Everyone got really nervous. I'm like, everybody, let's just calm down. Let's just see what's going on here. And my grandmother, or whoever it was, I wasn't convinced at the time that it was even someone from the other side. But she began communicating by typing words in the search
mm,
bar of television. And what convinced me that it could not be a hacker or anyone in the physical realm at all is that whoever was typing the words, they could read our thoughts in real time. And they knew
mm,
things he had never shared with another soul, deeply personal things.
mm,
And like, be having a thought in our minds, and before we could even articulate the question or verbalize the thought, the response would be issued, in the search
mm,
bar. And so that rocked me to my core. I was like, okay, so this is definitely not someone in the physical realm. It's definitely a spirit, something spiritual. But is it
mm,
Granny? My next concern was, is it something malevolent, or
mm.
coming from that Christian context, everything's
Yeah.
a demon, in
Mm,
Christianity. They warn you away from anything paranormal, supernatural. So, uh, but in time, I did become convinced that it was my grandmother, primarily because of her great love and devotion for particular family members. She was clearly very concerned for some people who were very important to her, who had patterns in their life that would be destructive, unhealthy patterns of behavior. There were also relational issues that needed to be sort of reconciled. And so she
mm,
spoke into all of those things in a way that brought a lot of healing and health and restoration. She actually saved physical lives in her
mm,
communication with the things that she was saying. She apologized for some past hurts,
mm,
said things that she felt really needed to be said. And so it was that type of communication that convinced me that, hey, this cannot be something malevolent.
mm,
And to this day, which it's almost 4 years now, we have had sustained communication with her. And
mm.
to this day, the fruit of all of it has been nothing but restorative and loving and compassionate. And so, Jesus said, you will know them by their fruit.
Mm.
And so that's for me, the litmus test for the fact that it is my grandmother.
Yeah. Did she always use the TV and this technicality to communicate, or did you feel like a psychic connection as well at times, or?
I'm not psychic, so I never had that psychic
Mm,
connection at all. Neither did my family members who lived there. She did initially only use the television,
mm,
but in time she did use other electronic devices. And
mm,
so I think the second thing that she began using was the printer. And
mm,
so the printer was Bluetooth connected to my cousin's computer, her laptop. And like a sheet of paper would just come out with random words that she had not, my cousin had not printed. And it was, like messages from Granny. And when we realized that she could do that, we invested in some little thermal heat printers. They're like receipt paper,
mm.
kind of what they look like. And they, their battery, you recharge them. So they're battery operated. And we have a few of those and we can just turn those on and they're not even connected to any devices. And if she wants, she can print something on the paper. It seems that the television is the easiest form of communication for
Mm,
her, but it's limited in that she can only put so many words in that search bar at a time. So, like
mm,
maybe, a short sentence, a few words, something like that. Whereas the printer, she's able to type full on paragraphs. So she's
mm,
able to more if she uses the printer.
mm. Yeah, it's interesting because many say that like in our non-physical form, we're a form of magnetism.
Mhm.
So, it makes sense that we would be able to interface with electronic devices in some way. Um, yeah, that's very interesting. What did she tell you about like the afterlife?
Well, initially, like I said, she came through communicating strongly about particular patterns in people's lives, things like that. She was not at all staying to tell me what the afterlife was like
Mm,
or to answer my nerdy theological questions. She wasn't staying for me at all. It was other people, other loved ones. And so she was, initially it was all of our communication was around family matters, personal, relational type things. But when I realized that she could see into the heart of people and situations, like she
mm,
could see everything, like nothing is hidden on the other
mm,
side. She could see into the recesses of our hearts. And like there is no such thing as a private thought. And when that became apparent to me that she could see with such clarity, I started to ask theological questions,
mm,
more philosophical type questions. Um, and so, what did she say the afterlife is like? Well, it's not like the mainstream Christian view where you cross and you go be with Jesus in heaven, or you go to a place called hell for all eternity where you are punished with fire and brimstone. It's not like that at all. Basically, everyone who crosses goes into the spirit realm. So
mm,
it's just, and really throughout the Old Testament, it's called Sheol, which is just the realm of the dead. And that would be
mm,
more accurate. There's just the realm of the dead. There's just another dimension of a discarnate reality where spirits are. They're just in another dimension that's overlapping this physical dimension. So we're surrounded by spirits continually. The
mm,
great cloud of witnesses that are urging us on, they're always with us. It's just that
mm,
they're inceptible to most of us. But when we cross, she says that we take whatever level of consciousness we've attained at the time of our crossing, we take that with us. And so we
mm,
continue in our journeys in that sense.
mm,
She does tell me that there is a fire on the other side that everyone passes through, but it's not retributive, it's
mm,
restorative. And it's basically, just to put it simply, it's intended to burn away everything that interferes with love.
mm,
Yeah. So, and I would say it's the full light of truth. It's
mm,
clear. It's the clarity of God. And basically, if we live authentically, if we live from love, we won't have much trouble with that fire.
mm,
But if we live inauthentically, if we are living in duplicity, more egoically, completely identified with the world of form, we'll have a lot harder time in that fire.
mm. Yeah, I've heard like from people who've had near-death experiences as well that they have a kind of a form of a life review. But they say it's not a judgmental thing at all in a way. In a way, it's almost themselves judging themselves.
Yeah.
And the looking at their whole life, and they say you experience it from the other person's perspective. So if you've hurt people in your life, animals or whatever, or you've done certain things, then you see it from the other person's perspective, and you feel it. You feel it. So it's like you're actually judging yourself and thinking, oh, that it, but it's not like, it's not like a judgment thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that really resonates. And I know she has told me that near death experiences are not what it's like to actually die.
Mm,
And
mm,
it's more of a dream-like or psychedelic-like experience where it's your own mental projections and you're having the experience that you need to have. And it's not
mm,
that it's not a legitimate experience, it is. She tells me the fire is a bit different than that life review that
Mm,
people, a mental projection that people are kind of going through that. But that can also be part of the process as we release and go into slip into that astral realm.
mm,
Um, we do process things through that filter, though, where we do see the other person's pain that we call, like we
mm,
feel the pain that we caused someone else. And like you said, it's like you're judging yourself. I think that really is it. I think,
mm,
in a course in miracles, forgiveness is the miracle.
mm,
And I think in mainstream Christianity, forgiveness is front and center also, but it's often framed in like in a very negative kind of way,
mm,
disempowering kind of way, where you're a dirty, rotten sinner and you need forgiveness from God so that you can go to heaven when you die. But in reality, I think that we're saved by forgiveness in the sense that we have to forgive
mm,
and we have to forgive ourselves. It's not so much, I mean, we, forgive others too, but I think it boils down to being self reflective, self aware,
mm,
seeing all of our duplicity with the full light of clarity, all of our shadow elements, and then meeting it with forgiveness,
mm.
compassion, and love instead of judgment.
Yeah, that's really good. So what would you say, how would you describe karma? I mean, if you at all believe in karma, how would you think about karma and also in relation to past, present, and future lives?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I was just having that conversation with someone the other day because karma can seem so ethereal or intangible, and there is maybe sometimes a little bit difficult to understand for some
Mm,
people, especially coming from a Christian perspective. Simply put, I would say that karma is just the unconscious conditioning that's running your life.
mm,
It's really a psychological way to put it. It's what Carl Jung would have said is the shadow elements that are running your life.
mm,
Um, so it's not that karma is some external magical force that's exacting punishment and retribution for
mm,
your actions. It's really your own unconscious conditioning that is causing you to behave and think in a certain way and attracting certain things to yourself.
mm,
We don't get what we desire necessarily. We get what we are a vibrational match for.
mm,
Is our unconscious conditioning, right? Because on the surface, you may be saying that you believe this, that, or the other, but deep down, what you really believe is what's running your life. If you believe a certain thing, like deep down unconsciously, then your behaviors and your actions will line up with that thing, right? I mean,
mm,
um, yeah. So basically, karma is just the unconscious conditioning that's this unfolding your life in a certain trajectory and drawing certain experiences to yourself because
mm,
all of life is designed to awaken us. And so we're getting what we need for our evolution in every moment. And once we learn the lesson, then we stop having the opportunity. It's like, for instance, I'll give you an example. Like if you get really angry in traffic, you have road rage, maybe that's your issue. Well, you're going to always get behind the slow person. You're going to always be cut off in
mm,
traffic. There's going to always be an opportunity for you to get angry in traffic. And you may be thinking, gosh, why does this always happen to me? Why do these people always cut me off? Why are people always doing this to me, while I'm driving? And the thing is, until we learn that lesson, that's our karma, right? That's
mm,
life giving us what we need to awaken us. We have to learn the lesson and then we turn the corner and we're able to have a different experience.
mm. Yeah, it actually took me a while to actually understand that because in the beginning I thought that's not fair. It's like if we're if we're calling out to help to the universe, surely, we should be met with help. But actually I get it. I'm starting to get it now that that the universe or God or whatever you want to call it will bring things on your path, actually making it harder for you, but it's not to punish you. It's for you to understand that you need to transcend that. So you need to transcend your road rage. You need to, whatever it is, that's the issue, that you will get more and more of it, and then you will start to realize, okay, I'm not going to play this game anymore.
Right.
I'm going to
Yeah.
come in the opposite spirit.
Yeah. Because we want relief from those things. Like we want God to rescue us from our
Mm,
own self-sabotaging behaviors, and that's not really how it works.
mm,
We have to go through that crucible. We have to learn our lessons and let go. I know I've asked my grandmother on many occasions the same question, but worded and framed in different ways. And the question was like, how do you obtain, or how do we obtain salvation? How do we become enlightened? How do we find
mm,
inner peace? How do we become whole? How do we become integrated?
mm,
I've worded it so many ways. And every time without fail, the answer is the same. It's let go.
mm,
So forgiveness is letting go, and it is that is the way that we experience wholeness and peace.
mm. Yeah. Are you still in communication with her then?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. So I'm thinking you must have had some like more deeper conversations about the universe and other life out in the galaxies and things like that.
Yeah, we've had conversations around the multiverse, the ideas
Mm,
like the quantum theories of the multiverse. She does tell me that we do live in a multiverse. There are alternate realities. So we have past lives, so to speak. I mean, really, time is an illusion, but
mm,
our perspective, we have something that would, be like a past life, but we also have alternate reality lives that are playing out within every incarnation.
mm,
Uh, so yeah, the Mandela effect, things like that are real, and it's because of a glitch in the matrix or an overlap in those timelines, the alternate
mm.
realities. A lot of what I've asked about quantum theories, she'll tell me, she says no say. That's her way of
Okay.
saying that she's not going to answer the question. And
Oh, she's not
sometimes,
allowed.
yeah, sometimes it's because she can't tell, like
Mm,
she's not supposed to tell me. She'll say some things, you're not supposed to know.
mm,
Sometimes it's because there are really no words
mm,
in terms that I could even understand it. And a lot of the quantum stuff it's beyond being able to understand. I know in a recent conversation, I was asking about some quantum theory, and she said they keep trying to figure us out, but they can't. And then she typed the word funny. So she
mm,
was amused, and I guess, yeah, it is amusing that we in our finite minds are trying to wrap our minds around or understand and articulate something ineffable, really.
mm. What about like extraterrestrials and in other dimensions or densities? Does she talk about that or a galactic federation at all?
Yeah, I know my family, one of the first questions to kind of open the door into that topic was, do aliens exist? And she said, yes, but they're not little green men like people
Mm,
think. I'm like, well, yeah, of course. But what she has communicated is that they are interdimensional advanced intelligence beings. That's a better way to kind of say it. And
mm,
yeah, so they're in alternate dimensions, higher dimensions. And that's why they seem to blink in and out of our field of view. Um, and there are other beings, such as like certain cryptids or whatever. And that's why
mm,
people to see them and then they disappear. It's because
mm,
they're in another dimension. So they're sort of, entering our dimension or becoming visible in our dimension briefly and then invisible. They can materialize and dematerialize at will. I guess that's the best way to
mm,
say it. Kind of like what Jesus did when he appeared in locked rooms, where he just suddenly appeared with the disciples and then he could dematerialize at will. When you're in a higher dimension, you can do that. And so that's what she would say that aliens are.
mm. Yeah. Yeah, I've always wondered as well as like from you know, angels in the Bible, and angel basically just means messenger. And obviously, it seems to me that they often look like human beings in a way, just maybe slightly different in some way. So I'm wondering, are these visitors from other planets? Um, or, are they even like higher up on the dimensional scale, closer to God's source, where there's less physicality? Because I think there's a whole range of maybe densities or dimensions where physicality changes, or gets closer to source. In some ways, I feel like when we descended into Like the fall for me is like we descended into physicality. Not that it's like a sinful thing or anything like that, but it was just like the want to experience physicality, and that maybe Earth, where we've been more in a three-dimensional realm, is maybe, maybe the hardest level, if you want to call it a level in some way. But there are sort of beings that are on a higher density that are maybe closer to source, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense to me. And that's actually, I'm writing a second book. And
Mm,
in the second book, that's kind of the premise that I'm coming from, is that we fell into physicality, or the fall was a fall into the physical. And,
mhm,
in the Bible, it says that, he covered them with garments of flesh, which is to say physical mortal bodies. And that's why death did not exist prior to the fall. I mean, in Genesis, it
mm,
says that the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. And so to be physical is to die. And so yeah, what you're saying, I think that's really intuitive, that God's source is in a higher dimension, obviously beyond all time and space, beyond, God is the ground of all being, I would say,
mm,
from my perspective. And there are beings that are in higher dimensions that are not in these physical, fleshly bodies. And so, yeah, I definitely think that as we dropped our vibration, slowed our vibration, we became basically slowed down, vibration slowed down into matter. And I
mm,
think that's what's going on in this 3D world of form. And I think that, that tension of duality here in this 3D world of form is
mm,
what makes learning uh, exponential learning. It makes
mm,
for exponential learning. I guess that's the best way to say it, because it is that tension, it is that duality, the impermanence of everything here in the physical realm.
mm,
It speeds up our learning. Without the other, you can't learn like that. It's the experience of the other, like that duality is what allows us to be able to grow and evolve. We can't have it
mm,
without that tension of opposites. I know there was that experiment where they grew trees in like a biodome, and they were free from any of the elements, like no wind. They had this perfect condition, and they grew these trees without any tension, without any elemental tensions. And
mm,
so the trees grew quickly. They flourished, they just
mm,
sprang right up. But then without that wind, they didn't develop any kind of stress would. And so they blew right over. They had no kind of root system or whatever. Well, the same is true for us. It's that tension. And that's what the world of form, I believe, is offering us, is that
mm,
tension so that we can grow and evolve and, become who we were created to be,
mm.
which is definitely something more in line with what Jesus modeled at his resurrection. I mean, not disembodied, not at the real, some spirit just kind of floating around intangibly. He ate fish. He invited the disciples to touch him. So it was something tangible, but it's something exponentially more. A glorified body, I guess, is what Paul called it in the epistles. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. And I think to get back to what you were saying about aliens, I think that's what aliens, and I'm hesitant to even use that word aliens because it has such baggage attached to it. I just
Mm,
really think there are other beings, whether we call them angels or watchers, but there are other beings that are just in higher dimensions, and they're just advanced intelligence beings that are operating on a higher plane of existence.
yeah, and quite possibly, we have had maybe experiences as those beings before coming to Earth, that is definitely, a possibility, I think. What do you think about, do you think the Earth experience was hijacked at some point?
Do I think the Earth was hijacked?
No, yeah, the humans of Earth that we've gone through like certain resets or maybe a hijack, you know.
Yeah, I think so. I think, initially, our fall, if you will, into the physical was just a participation with other beings. I mean, you have the serpent in the garden, which I believe was a cherub, an advanced intelligence beings who was dispensing divine knowledge. So I believe that, we developed along or evolved along in our consciousness, and we collaborated with other entities, with other beings,
Mm,
and in that sense. And I do believe that, yeah, there. And I'm not really into, like, I don't know a lot about all of the different theories about how humanity was like bioengineered by certain
mm,
alien races. Like, I haven't really went deep down those rabbit holes, but it does seem that we have collaborated in a way to put ourselves in bondage to other entities. Yeah, and
mm,
even the Bible kind of speaks of that. It's like, the people were so rebellious that God gave them over to the other gods. I think it's what, is it Psalm 82, where God disinherits the nations over, like, what is it, the 82 nations? I forget exactly, but God
mm,
disinherits nations and he gives them over to the lesser Elohim, which are the other gods. And he's like, but Israel, I keep, and it's Yahweh says, but Israel, I keep as my portion. And there again, I think that Yahweh is even an advanced intelligence being. But I
mm.
don't believe that Yahweh is source God
No.
in that, because there's El Elyon, who seems to be a higher being, and then you have Yahweh, who is subordinate to El Elyon. So there's a
Mm,
lot kind of going on in the Old Testament that has been completely glossed over. And I think it is pointing definitely to the collaboration of, advanced intelligence beings, collaborating with humans, ruling over humans in some kind of way, and we have
mm.
become subordinate to. Yeah, I definitely think there's some of that going on.
Yeah, very interesting. I've been reading a lot of the work of Paul Wallace, and
Yeah,
he talks a lot about that, and also like the Anunnaki in the Sumerian literature as well. And also like where in Genesis it says, "Let us make man in our image." And when I mention that to Christians, they say, "Oh, it's the Trinity," but the Trinity didn't even become a thing until a few hundred years after Jesus. So the way I see it, it was some kind of sky council.
yeah,
So it was some kind of like extraterrestrial beings, but they looked human, as from what I can see, because I think we've been hybridized again and again and again in many, many, many. I do think there's humans out in other places in the universe. So I don't think that the humans of Earth are the only humans around.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I'm interested. Did you ever go down like the Dolores Cannon rabbit hole? Because I remember, listening to her and then thinking, thinking there was something wrong with this Earth is a school type thinking. Because like I thought, if Earth is a school, why would we keep on coming back and forgetting everything, like having this amnesia?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah. So, well, I never did go down the Dolores Cannon rabbit hole. I've heard some of her, talks on YouTube, and I might have read some of one of her books. I can't remember. I might have one in my Kindle library, but yeah, I didn't really get super into that. Around the time that my grandmother came through was around the time that people were sort of recommending, and kind of Cannon came into my field of view. And because I had the ability to just ask my grandmother what I want to know in that regard, I didn't spend time just really poring over what she was saying.
Mm,
And some of the things I did that came, like, maybe I heard a clip or something, and I'd be like, is that true what Dolores Cannon is saying? Is that really true? And my grandmother would clarify. Some of it is and some of it isn't. So I think there's like most people have, all of us, because we're limited, we have maybe some of the truth. In nobody has it all figured out.
mm,
But yeah, I do think though that Earth does this, well, this 3D world of form, this density, to put it that way, does provide opportunities for growth and evolution and learning.
mm,
Um, and why do we forget? I think it's so that we can zoom in and focus on particular lessons. I think if we remembered everything all at once, it would just be too much. It would be a distraction. Just think about how just remembering some of your own past behaviors or actions or situations in this one lifetime can sometimes be an impediment. It can be a
mm,
distraction. You get caught up in all of the what ifs or shoulda, coulda, kind of thinking. And if you could remember every lifetime, and every
Mm,
step that you had made or any wrong done to you, that too can be things that are hard to let go of. It would be such an impediment. So I think that the amnesia is for a reason, and it's so that we can immerse ourselves fully in the lesson at hand.
mm,
Because it seems that, with every incarnation, you have different karmic lessons to work out. So that's why it's over time, and that's why it's multiple. Usually, for most people, it's multiple incarnations. You kind of focus on one thing. When you incarnate, it's like a constriction of awareness, and then when you leave this physical realm, it's an expansion of awareness where you sort
mm,
of integrate the lessons. So every time we step in, we're zooming in, and then when we step out, we're zooming out. We're integrating and deciding: do we need to come back? Do we need to learn some more?
mm,
Yeah, my grandmother makes it a point to tell us that it's much easier to do your work, inner work, in the physical than it is to wait and have to sort of work it all out on the other side. That tension of opposites, the
mm.
duality, really does help. And so she tells us, do the work now. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've always wondered about that. I've wondered about like when we do like transcend from this reality, and we do go back to like the spirit world, whatever you want to call it. Maybe we go back to our soul groups, however that works. I think soul groups are a fluid thing. I think that we pick up people along the souls along the way, and sometimes we, have learn lessons with souls, and then we find new souls to have lessons with. But I've always wondered like that, it's in a like a more of a disembodied state. How is it? How do we work things out, with other souls? Um, yeah, I've always thought about that. Um, and there is and in the spiritual community at the moment, there's a lot of talk about there being this kind of like a Earth being a prison planet or a soul trap that people just keep coming back and doing exactly the same thing again. And I don't think, so I was wondering what kind of thoughts you have on that.
Yeah. Well, I think that we are free agents.
Mm,
My grandmother stresses the fact that we are free to make
mm,
another choice.
awesome.
Although it can feel like we're not free because of our karma, right? Those, like I said, karma is really our unconscious conditioning. And, you might not feel like you're free to make another choice when you're caught in the grip of a complex, right? Because of that momentum. And I personally don't believe that, we're prisoners here. I
Mm,
believe that we are, in the sense that some external force has imprisoned us to be stuck in this,
mm,
this loop of reincarnation on this prison planet. I don't think of it that way. I believe that, if we are imprisoned, it's an internal imprisoning. We
mm,
are sabotaging ourselves. We are not learning our karmic lessons.
mm,
And so ultimately, at the end of the day, are there external forces? Yes, I believe there are entities. I believe there are evil entities out there swirling in the ether. And I believe that, that's certainly affects us and
mm,
can affect how we make decisions or whatever. But at the end of the day, we can always choose another choice. We can make
mm.
another choice.
Yeah.
And, if we vibrate high enough, then those evil entities won't be able to affect us. So it's
Mm,
because we are participating with it's, like in that negative feedback loop or whatever. So yeah, I believe that it's up to us. We are free agents, and no one is holding us against our will. We are making conscious choices, or I should say, in most cases, unconscious choices. Actually, we may think we want a different outcome, but we're not able to step out of our karmic, that flow, that karmic momentum that kind of has us in its grip.
yeah. Yeah, I tend to agree with you as well on that because I think that like when we transcend from this life, that like you say, if we're in the right vibration, a high enough vibration, then we can decide to do anything, to go anywhere, to do anything. And maybe some of us are on here on some kind of side quest, maybe maybe we've lived lives on other planets in high dimensions or whatever, and then come here, for the special time because I think we're going through a really weird but also special time on Earth, I think. It seems like maybe the whole universe or galaxy is like decided to descend upon Earth at this time. to try and maybe, yeah, to work out our karma that we've had, maybe from, previous galactic wars and things like that. Some say that Star Wars is like the history of what happened in the Orion Zone, or Lyra, whatever. Um, that we're here on Earth, all the different species, to try and work out things, and where we're heading is might be like as galactic envoys in some ways, so that we'll whatever we've learnt on Earth about dealing with our differences, we can bring that out, to all souls, to all beings. However we think about the universe, if it's a universe, a multiverse, I think that all beings, all souls come from source and will go back to source at some point. So, everything's going to be okay as far as I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
That's the
think
way I
anyone's fully lost.
No, absolutely not. I don't either. I believe that in the end everything will be okay. And if it's not the end, or if it's not okay, then it's not the end. I think that's
Mm,
Jonathan said that. I think we're all headed towards something exponentially greater. And
mm,
believe that, like you were saying, the plural language in Genesis.
mm,
People would say it's the Trinity, but that there's that where it says, "In the day that you eat of it, you will become like the gods." I
mm,
mean, that word used, the Elohim, you will become like the Elohim and
mm,
knowing good and evil. That's the thing in the garden. Humanity coexisted with divine beings or advanced intelligence beings. You have like the serpent figure, who I believe was a cherub.
mm,
And so, in that higher state of existence, we are all interacting collectively as
mm,
one. And so, here we've dropped into this amnesic, lower
mm,
dimensional state of existence, and we have forgotten our oneness, but we've also severed ourselves from the collective um, other beings, other entities that
mm,
exist out there. And so it's very short sighted. And I do believe that, like you were saying, other people may be on a mission here too, or other beings. I say people, use that word loosely, but star seeds, for instance, other
mm,
people kind of incarnate here in the human form to help raise the human consciousness.
mm,
Because collectively, I would say, we have that collective karma, that collective shadow, and that's keeping us. That is what I believe we are imprisoned by, more
mm,
so than, some external being. Now, I'm not saying there aren't external elements. It's more of a both and, but we can step off that wheel of karma anytime we choose to. And
mm.
I think, collectively, we're probably a bit behind.
Yeah.
Not learning our lessons. We're not raising our vibration and coming into alignment. And that really, if you really simplify all of that talk, it's just about living from love. That really is
Mm,
it. How loving can you be in every moment? It's really that simple, but we miss it. We miss the mark entirely.
mm. Yeah, I agree. I think love is definitely the answer. Um, when I had my spiritual awakening, it was like I developed like a new love for humanity, I think, on a greater level, and also a love for myself. That I think that was the key for me, is to truly love myself, because I all my life I'd been kind of more of a trying to make other people to please other people, and so I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that makes sense to me because, we have to love ourselves first, right? I
Mm,
mean, you can't love others if you can't love yourself properly. So it's about self compassion first and foremost. And then
mm,
from a place of self compassion, self acceptance, love for yourself, not love of self, but love for yourself, then the divine flow can flow through you and out into others. And so,
mm,
yeah, I think it's about equanimity and love for all, including ourselves, because ultimately we are all one, right? There is
mm,
no me and you in the sense that we are really individual, separate beings. We are one. And Jesus
mm,
said, love your neighbor as yourself. He wasn't, I don't, he didn't say love your neighbor as, you know, in the way that you love yourself. He
Mm.
said, love your neighbor as yourself. In other words, as a continuation of your very being,
Yeah.
because there are no others, right? Love others as yourself because there are no others.
Mm. Yeah, that's awesome. Um, so go, I got another question about your granny because it fascinates me. Um, did she ever talk about what she was going to do next? Like, did she say anything about she was going to incarnate again?
She says she's not. And
Okay.
yeah. And I said, why not? And she said, would you want to? And I'm like, well, gosh, I'm here. I don't know. I guess I signed up for it on some level, although at times I think I could just go back and slap myself for doing so. I think,
Mm.
would I, why would I choose this? But yeah, she says no, that she's not planning to reincarnate. She says it's a choice.
Mm.
And I will say, though, even though it is a choice, I believe that if we really haven't learned our karmic lessons, we would be likely to choose to come back so that we can.
Mm.
Because if we don't come into alignment, it's uncomfortable. It's
Mm.
painful in some ways. It's just like here in the physical realm, if we're living our life fragmented, out of alignment, um, distorted thinking, all it leads to
Mm.
suffering. That's really what compels people to seek out any kind of religious doctrines or
Mm.
theologies to kind of immerse themselves in. Right? They want some relief deep
Mm.
down. They really sense that something is off, something is um, preventing them from having an inner peace. So that's
Mm.
what we really all want, right? We want that fulfillment. We want, as Joseph Campbell said, to experience the rapture of being alive. And
Mm.
so, if we are resisting our inner work, if we're not going within and facing our shadow issues, then we just continue to suffer. And the same is
Yeah.
true on the other side. So, if someone crossed to the other side and they didn't come into alignment and do all of their inner work, then they would probably want to reincarnate so that they could continue in their journey and find some peace and
Mm.
contentment.
Yeah. What is your like view on shadow work and like integrating our shadow?
Yeah, so I would just say that we all have, well, shadow elements, and they begin early. I mean, in the womb, even I would say, what is it,
Mm.
3 months before we are born? Uh, we're being programmed with certain karmic or shadow elements.
Mm.
And so, yeah, we spend our lives sort of repressing things that we find undesirable or unacceptable about ourselves, which that's the shadow. And they're not necessarily bad things, just things that are unacceptable in our family of
Mm.
origin, the world at large. And then we, present in the world with this persona, which is the mask we wear in the world. It's how we want to be seen.
Mm.
And so we get out of balance because we're pressing into the light. We have this persona, this, the best foot forward kind of situation, but we're not dealing with these shadow elements that we've shoved under the surface, and
Mm.
they don't go away. They're just gaining momentum. It's like if you take a beach ball and, blow it up and you hold it under the water. I mean, there's that pressure, right? It's always trying to pop back up.
Mm.
And if you're not careful, if you get too relaxed, boom, it will pop up, right? And that's
Mm.
that's those shadow, that's how they sabotage us. Things like you have a sudden outburst and you think, gosh, where did that come from? Well, it's because
Mm.
you have integrated shadow issues.
Mm.
So for me, it's just about practicing mindfulness, becoming aware of your own shadow elements and welcoming with compassion
Mm.
those various aspects of yourself that you spent a lifetime pushing into the darkness, not
Mm.
you're not welcoming to the party, essentially.
Yeah. And maybe even some of those shadowy things that arises in our life, they could even be coming from like a past life or a past life experience, don't you think?
I think so, because I think we're always us.
Mm.
I may not be Brandy in every life. I wouldn't
Mm.
be. Well, I could be a different race, a
Mm.
different, gender, even things
Mm.
like that. The physical aspects can vary, but
Mm.
deep down, my essence, my, who I am at my core, it remains the same. And so I am likely to respond in very similar ways to similar stimuli, right? Because,
Mm.
how you do anything is how you do everything. And that really is what karma is. We're coming from that conditioning. And yeah, it carries over. If we don't learn our lessons in this life, then we just get to bring them back into the next. And work them out, usually with the same people, the same relational dynamics. And so, yeah, that's why you often, you're replaying the same drama uh, with your spouse or whatever. Most
Mm.
every argument you have is going to be about the same thing at its core, uh, for the entire marriage until you both, face your shadow issues. So yeah, I definitely think it can be from past lives, and I also think it can be familial. I've been doing a lot of reading about epigenetics and how we
Mm.
certain traumas and things like that. So I think you can also have, relational or familial karma
Mm.
that you have to sort of work through, because we are not an island. Like I have been saying, we are really all one. And
Mm.
so, yeah, I think, and in the Bible, it says you inherit, what is that? The sins of the parents are passed on to the third and fourth generations or something like
Mm.
that. I
Yeah.
think that's what it's about. I don't think that God is like, smiting people with ancestral trauma,
No.
like, oh, I can give this to this child. And no, I think
Yeah.
it's inherited.
Mm.
Um, that's just the way that our biological process works.
Yeah,
Like
it's
when
like
you're,
it's in the DNA or something.
yeah, it's like
Mm.
I think it informs how our DNA is expressed. And that's also
Mm.
something I was recently writing in the book that I'm working on now, because I definitely think that our DNA is the key
Mm.
um, to our awakening. I think there's a
Mm.
correlation there. And so, yeah, it's just fascinating stuff.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, a lot of people in the spiritual community are talking about DNA and upgrading of DNA and things like that, which is really fascinating. Before we end, there was another thing I wanted to chat to you about, is that I know that you've been studying a lot about dreams at the moment, and that you're probably going to write a book about dreams and things like that. So, yeah, what in your opinion, I know this is a big subject. We could have a whole podcast on this, and maybe we will. But in your opinion, what are dreams?
Yeah. So in my opinion, dreams are messages from God, to put it very simply. Um, so I would say that all dreams come in the service of in the service of health and wholeness. That's a quote from Jeremy Taylor. Excuse me. Sorry. Get my voice back on track here.
Mhm.
All dreams come in the service of health and wholeness. And I would say that they're coming from source, from God, from our higher self. Maybe
Mhm.
another way that people might like to think of that. I think of that as all saying the same thing. So basically, as we're sleeping, our higher self is sending us symbolic messages. And it's, messages that transcend our waking um, language, so to speak, like the way that we would
Mhm.
articulate things, our rational minds. It transcends our rational way of processing the world. And
Mhm.
so oftentimes dreams just get disregarded as nonsense because they seem, nonsensical. You're like, wow, what could that possibly mean? Well,
Mhm.
logically and rationally, it doesn't mean much. But if you learn to kind of tap into the more symbolic, metaphorical language of dreams, they can really, I personally believe they're a direct line into your shadow issues. I
Mhm.
believe it's the quickest, best, most expedient way to tap into what's going on in your shadow,
Mhm.
in the conscious.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's definitely something that's consuming me at the moment about dreams as well, because I am an avid dreamer, and I dream, 3, 4, 5 dreams a night, and I write them down and things like that. And sometimes they're really spacey, and sometimes they're just boring. Sometimes they're just like I know it's like me processing things, or my subconscious processing things throughout the night, but they're often like steeped in metaphor and symbolism. So sometimes it takes quite a while to actually try and work out what your higher self is trying to tell you. And
Yeah.
I even think that we can contact and communicate with other dreamers while we're dreaming as well. But that's a deep rabbit hole.
Yeah, I think so too, because there's that collective consciousness, right? And we're
Mm,
tapping into that. And so some dreams may be actual visitation dreams. I
mm,
mean, some precognitive. So I don't want to lump all dreams into one category, but by and large, I believe that most dreams are the higher self trying to tell us something we're not consciously aware of, but that we need to be. And
mm,
that's why they can also be difficult to sort of understand or decode or and it's because it's unconscious content, right? And to be unconscious
mm,
means we're unaware.
mm,
And that's why it's best, I think, to work dreams with someone else. I don't know. I mean, some people do it in therapy, like with Jungian analysts. That's very much a part of Jungian uh, therapy.
mm,
But there are dream groups. I was in a dream group for a while, and it
mm.
was really a lot of fun. And I have been thinking about starting another dream group where
Ah,
several people just, get together, maybe monthly. A couple people share their dreams, and then you work the dream as a group by projecting onto that person's dream material. So, like if you shared a dream, with the group, everyone
mm,
would go around and say, with the different components, elements of your dream, they might say something like, well, if this were my dream, this would mean that. Or
mm,
in my dream, this means that. And so it
mm,
gives it's kind of gives you something to consider that maybe you hadn't already considered, like what's
mm,
coming up with other people. And because we are all one and we are
mm,
all tapping into that unitive consciousness when we sleep, even working someone else's dream can give you your own aha
mm,
moment.
mm,
Because because of that their dream material can be beneficial to you even. So
mm,
yeah, I think it's helpful to work dreams with other people, because if you try to work them alone, you can't know what you don't know.
mm,
And the dream maker is trying to tell you something you're really not tapping into. That's why often, like if there are recurring dreams, that's what that's about. It's like you
mm,
keep getting the same message over and over, and you think, why am I having the same
mm,
mundane, just maybe it's some stressful situation that you just keep replaying in your dreams. It's because you're not getting the message. The dream maker just keeps
mm,
sending it. Or maybe you have a nightmare. The dream maker is not trying to frighten you, it's trying to get your
mm,
attention. So it's
mm,
like, if you a nightmare, you'll remember that. And,
mm,
by and large, as a culture, we're not working our dreams. We're not like keeping a dream journal or paying
true.
attention to the messages in our dreams. So we're really squandering a lot of, I think, deep messages.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's an untapped reality, because it is. I think it really is connecting us to the quantum field in some way. I'm part of a group at the moment, and we meet every couple of weeks, and we're actually trying some dream telepathy experiments where we're trying to send a picture to a person while they're sleeping, and we've had some amazing results. But it's always how they interpret what we send is fascinating because it's not it won't be an exact copy of what is being sent, but it will be interpreted in a certain way. So I thought that was fascinating.
That is fascinating. I would love to
Mm.
hear a lot more about that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that sometime.
It's right up my
Okay.
alley. I love dream work. And then, the whole idea that you could be psychically connecting to other people while they're asleep. I'm fascinated by
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that's a whole new area. Yeah, definitely for the future as well. Well, Brandy, is there anything that you're working on at the moment that you'd like to share with us about?
Um, well, I'm having a book club that will start the 16th of this month. So I don't know when this episode airs, but if it airs before the 16th, if you're interested in joining my book club, I'm on Substack and I have
Hmm.
all of the resources there. So yeah, just follow me, subscribe on Substack. Yeah, that's it. I think that's the only thing that I have really going on right now. But if you want to connect with me, my website is andersonalchemy.com.
Hmm.
And my book, Through the Veil, A Glimpse into the Afterlife, is available on Amazon.
Great, yeah, and I really recommend your book. It was totally amazingly fascinating, and thank you for sending it to me to read. It was such a brilliant read, so fascinating as well. Um, so yeah, we'll put all the links. I'll put all the links to you, Linktree or whatever you've got, Substack, all of that in down in the comments or in the podcast notes as well.
Thank you.
So this has been really, really fascinating to connect with you again.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah. Another thing I was thinking, you're from Alabama, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you know like the Space Force was relocating to Huntington, Alabama?
No, I didn't. I
No,
didn't know
no, no. I just thought about it. Yeah, there's going to be a Space Force base in
that. Oh,
Huntington, Alabama.
wow.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
thought it was fascinating. Maybe there'll be like maybe you'll see UFOs flying around, but not the ones from outer space. Maybe the ones that we make on Earth.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just what I need to see a UFO. I'm already ostracized because of my paranormal encounter. If I become one of those people who sees a UFO, they'll
Yeah.
really,
Well, many have.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
yeah. We're here for the weirdness.
Yeah.
As long as we're living in love, in love for our neighbor and for others, then yeah, I think we're here for all kinds of experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm. Well, thank you for being with me today. This was absolutely wonderful conversation, and I wish you really the best with your writing and everything that you're doing, and also your courses that you'll be starting. I really hope that it's going to be a huge success.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to be here. I've enjoyed this conversation, and yeah, we'll have to do it again sometime.
Yes, we will. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Goodbye.
Goodbye.